You're tuned to The Drive on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. Steelers Nation Radio.
Matt, we got to get our show clock here back on schedule. So, short segment here to reset for hour number 2. But
yeah, we were rolling those first two.
Look at us, baby.
Yeah.
It's like it's game week or something, and we're a little excited and fired up, and plenty to talk about here on the drive all week. And I mean, really, we're hitting this point where like the content is going to just be dropped in our laps for the next 20 weeks. It is a very fantastic time. It's like the whole offseason, we're like the baseball player that stands in the batter's box with the big donut around his bat. Yeah. And then finally we take the donut off and we just swing, baby. Andrew tweets us and says, and he's got a screenshot of what looks like DraftKings or some, sports betting, sports gambling odds and ends here. Okay. And he says, based on your guys' conversation yesterday, this feels like it has a lot of value. Aaron Rodgers over under 22.5
touchdowns,
passing touchdowns on the season. For under, he's getting a little less than 2-1 odds, but not bad. Over, a little bit more than 2-1 odds. The number I came up with yesterday was 27.5.
Okay.
And we were I think we both went slightly under, I think was our answer.
I thought it was a really good number.
And I do remember you giving me credit for that. 22.5 feels like a definite over, right?
I mean, player props always lean towards under, folks. Because one injury and you win.
One injury,
yeah. I mean, again, so that being said, now he did play 17 games last year, and I don't think he's, just because of his age, I don't think he's more injury prone than others. Because frankly, I also don't think he's going to take that many hits because the ball's going to come out and he, for no better doubt. Or worse, no I don't think he's going to take as many hits.
Minimizing impact, certainly.
As Josh Allen, of course. Now, if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, I can't quote this enough. But first of all, if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, shame on you for 6 weeks.
Mike Lang.
But since 2022, 51 regular season games, the Steelers have thrown 46 touchdown
that is
passes.
Crazy.
Lowest in the NFL by a wide margin. Under 1 a game is sinful. I mean, that's really, really bad.
Can I have a counterpoint, though?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers ain't Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky.
But a year ago, I often made the joke, well, maybe they'll throw touchdowns this year because Wilson throws a lot himself. And it wasn't terrible. It was better, but it wasn't Pickett, Trubisky, Duck.
Well, and especially when George Pickens went out last year. That was a
problem, too.
Yeah.
But
that could affect this Aaron Rodgers thing, too, right? It's not just if he misses a couple games. What if DK Metcalf misses a couple games? 22.5, though, feels like
I still would be over.
Over.
Because I mean, in his last 51 games, Rodgers has thrown 91 compared to 46 for the Steelers.
It's an early little Matt stats nugget for you.
Now, I'm not throwing Rodgers under the bus, but I think they had the most passing attempts in the league last year, the Jets.
They did, like 520-something, I want to say, give or take.
And like Jets fans kind of like sour grapes, and he's had this reputation over his course of being in the NFL. He's aware of his stats. Let's just say that if they're down on the 3-yard line, he may check to a throw.
Hey, that'll help in this regard.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like he ended up with a lot of touchdowns last year. Maybe they could just hand it off to Breece Hall. It's kind of one of his reputations.
Interesting.
He's aware.
Interesting. Well, we will certainly keep an eye on that as we roll along there. Good question by Andrew to close us down for the first hour. So for those who might not know, and I'm assuming most of you do, this is The Drive. This is the baby of Matt Williamson and Dale Lawley that you guys have, close to a decade built up over here, right? Do you remember the exact year you guys started doing
That's not my job. He's the big brother. He knows these things. I don't know
Well,
these
Moats
things.
and I were 8 years.
We were well before that.
So, and you guys were definitely a couple years before us. So,
yeah.
Obviously,
we didn't even know each other. They threw us together.
That's
and
the same.
Yeah.
Moats and I met the day before we started doing a show together.
Okay.
The day before we had like a 20-minute meeting with Brian LaMartina, our iHeart boss here.
Okay.
And it was like, all right, guys, let's do a show.
I don't know if you remember the name Randy Slack. Good dude.
Of course I do, yeah. He used to be the DVE producer, yeah.
It was the 3 of us, and we were in this tiny little corner of the video room down at the
on the south side of the facility.
We had a round bar table. We all kind of huddled around, and Randy, God bless, is always a great dude. He would bring us in, and then
you guys would talk for 20 minutes.
For 2 hours straight, and then he'd be like, and that's the show. like, I think this is going to go pretty well between the two.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with Matt Williamson, just his Matt stats, his deep dive into a lot of the numbers and the analytics and the things behind the surface level, football stuff, the master's level, right? Like, You got your PhD in this stuff, Mr. Williamson, your law degree,
I've embraced analytics a great deal over the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
I think more so than a lot of people in this town.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Especially in this town where things tend to be a little more old school, and
it takes some convincing for some of our listeners. EPA, what are you talking about?
Right. When I started in 2018, it was either 2018 or 2019, my first year or two here. And I remember it was something like Moats and I talked about something like that on a segment. And we had a couple people tweet us and be like, nobody cares about analytics and fancy stats.
It's all made up. Right.
And I remember talking about this with Pursuta. And Pursuta said this line that still sticks with me.
He's a little tough one to...
Pursuta, he is a tough one in that department. But
that nut's cracking finally
It is finally cracking. And it relates to what he said, because what he told me is he said football fans in this town turn like the Titanic. He said, you just got to give them time. They move, but they move slowly. They turn like the Titanic, so just plug away and give them time. You'll get there.
You got to explain it, and I think I do a good job on that in a lot of different forums.
You do.
This is why it matters. I know you've never heard of this stat, but this is what it does, and blah, blah, blah,
But as you and I have been doing shows together now pretty regularly for the last 6-7 weeks or whatever it may be since the start of training camp.
And we've been on the air together for years.
And we have done stuff at the draft and the combine and all those different times of the year as well, too. I have been bookmarking a lot. You will just throw random nuggets, random tweets out. Sometimes at 9 in the morning, sometimes at midnight, sometimes at 3 in the afternoon.
Oh, there's often a glass of bourbon next to me and whatever's on TV, and like, oh, this is interesting.
Sometimes there's a little context to it. Sometimes it is quite literally just, here you go. Here's a number.
I like to put like a sentence out there, and you can decipher this however you want. Right.
So I've been trying to come up with like a way, because I would like to do this regularly.
Okay.
Where I kind of go through and pull out, like separate from the Matt stat stuff that you do. We'll do dedicated stuff for every week.
And to pull back the curtain, sometimes I just cut and paste a bullet point out of Matt stats. Because
Correct.
I'm like, it dawned on me and it's on my mind,
I wanted to call this the Matt Williamson hodgepodge of nothingness.
Okay.
But I don't think this is nothingness.
I say, don't be calling this nothingness.
So how about the hodgepodge? Quite the opposite, actually. How about the hodgepodge of randomness?
That's cool.
Does that work?
Because they're kind of unprovoked. They just boom. It's just
And again, some of them kind of fit within context of conversations. Others are just good numbers to discuss.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that one sentence could be a whole segment for us.
Sometimes one sentence that you tweet out can be a whole segment.
Yeah.
Like this one. Let's start here.
I've done podcasts on, here's one bullet point. I'm going to give you 15 minutes on it.
Across Arthur Smith's stops in the National Football League.
Oh, this was from last night, yeah.
No tight end in his offense has ever played more than 75% of the team's snaps.
I know. I think that's really relevant for what's going on right now. And that's crazy.
We talked about
He's had some good ones.
We talked about this a little bit from a fantasy football perspective when we were talking tight ends.
Yeah. You don't really want his tight ends.
But even bigger picture, I think this will really, forget the fantasy stuff as we're talking Steelers related, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this, I think, will really paint the picture of how they want it to be, for lack of a better term, a group effort or a group project from those three.
So fantasy football people, and a lot of these stats and numbers come from those folks, by the way. It's big business now, of course. Fantasy football people were not and did not give Arthur Smith a good reputation, especially as head coach in Atlanta, where nobody could tell him no. Like you draft Bijan 8th overall, and why is Algier out there for, or Kyle Pitts is off the field, or London, he was my 3rd round pick. Why aren't you using him more and more and more? You should never leave the field. You should throw to him every time. And that's relevant because I think Smith would probably even tell you if he was sitting here, yes, I like to use a rotation. Even the term depth chart in the NFL is becoming a little more and more obsolete. The Falcons' new head coach said today, I don't really believe in depth charts. 3rd and 8, I'm going to put Scotty Miller out there. It's not you're 5th on the depth chart.
It's not static football.
I need 3 guys to get hurt for you to see the field. No, Skoronek's going to be out there once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Smith overall wants to use a lot of people. keep his guys fresh. Defenses don't rotate as much. Maybe I can wear them down using more bodies. I can get more hockey lines out there to yours. You know what I mean? And maybe that's not always having the best players on the field for every snap. It's, it won't be. We know that. I mean, if Bijan comes off the field, somebody was less than him, Algier.
Sure.
But he can't play every snap. I mean, how do you most effectively use them? But I think it's especially true with tight ends. Like, to be frank, I had a problem with the Steelers' tight end usage a year ago.
Okay.
Because when they were in 12, one back, two tight ends, and I'm not going to explain this every time, guys. You got to know this by now. You got to do your homework, too.
It's post-Labor Day weekend. It's time to we're speaking football vernacular. And
remember, they didn't have Jonnu. The tight end room's better now than then.
Much better. But
their 12 personnel in 2024, too often for my liking, did not include Pat Freiermuth. It was Michael Pruitt. Maybe it was Hayward. Washington. I'm not saying he never did, but you would think if there's two tight ends on the field, your best guy should be out there.
Especially when there was your clear-cut best guy last year in Pat Freiermuth.
He should be 85% of the 12 personnel, and he wasn't. I forget what the number is, but it was low. So there's good and bad, but I definitely think with three of them, this is going to keep up. I mean, it's going to get even more so, where they're going to get close to equal snaps, in my opinion. Different situations or different players.
And that's what I mean. That's what I think definitely. Listen, Tunch and Wolf used to say this all the time. There's lies. There's dang lies. They would use a different four-letter D word. But there's lies, there's dang lies, and then there's statistics.
And Wolf was not easy nut to crack either, but he started to embrace it at the end. He liked Matt's stats. I'm not sure I'm going to send them to him.
You all those racks of ribs that you guys ate together for your Wednesday night shows. He finally warmed up to realizing this guy knows what he's talking about.
He's backing them up, and they make some sense. And right. I think he even quoted him on the air, in the booth.
I think this is one of those statistics that, again, sometimes just a number like that can be manipulated. There's situational stuff around it, all that. But I think this is something.
Maybe their best guy got hurt the year that Brock Bowers was going to play 100 snaps, or Kellen Winslow, or, you know what I mean? Yeah.
But I think when you combine what is now like a real depth of history with Arthur Smith offenses, it's not 2 years that we're going off of.
No. Jonnu Smith's been part of it every step of the way. He's not going to play 80% of the snaps.
And these three guys who are all talented in their own right, different skill set, the way you're going to be able to use them and deploy them in different scenarios, I think you can take this stat, that number to the bank. Like if you and I were doing over-under, any of these guys play more than 75% of the snaps at tight end, I think that's an easy under.
I think it's an easy under because, I mean, you'd have to play a ton of 13, and they will, but a ton of 13 is still 10% of the snaps. I mean, it's not 60% of the snaps.
Exactly right.
And even a ton of 12 might be 40% of the snaps. There's still going to be a lot of snaps that the Steelers have three receivers on the field and one tight end. I mean, this is the NFL. So it's not easy to get to. And this year, I mean, I was flat out critical of what they did last year. This year, I think it's a strength. Last year, I think it was a bit of a weakness. So, okay. And again, if you're going to play a ton of 12, you're going to play a ton of 13, Arthur, you're going to keep moving your tight ends in and out of the lineup.
Hopefully that becomes the Steelers' matchup calling card on offense.
That's what I'm going with is. So then the front office says, okay, I like your approach. I don't want you to change. I'll just get you better tight ends. And okay.
It's not the builder, it's the materials. It's not the chef, it's the ingredients.
Now there's a chance it's wrong. You know, maybe it's like we should have said, I don't like that approach, put Freiermuth out there every time. But we hired you for a reason. We had this conversation before we hired you. We know that you're, this isn't news to them.
Sure.
After
At
Atlanta,
least it better not be, right?
You would think not. That, okay, we like your approach. It is a unique way to play an offense. I keep bringing it up like the Ravens have Ricard on the field all the time. No one else deals with a beast like that. No one deals with 13 as much as the Steelers are going to throw at them, or a beast like Darnell Washington. So we want to be unique. You don't have as much time to prepare during the week as people think for these games. So we'll just give you better tight ends.
I think it makes a ton of sense from that standpoint, and that's when you see the Ravens and everything that they do with Lamar and Henry and Ricard, that's their matchup nightmare.
It's awful.
When you see the Bengals and you got to have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins dropping bombs on you for 60 minutes, that's their matchup nightmare. I'm hoping that those tight ends and the way they can deploy them and make teams show their hand with base and nickel and how they're going to defend when the Steelers are in 12 with Pat and Jonnu or Jonnu and Darnell or whatever that combination might look like. I'm I'm cautiously optimistic that that's going to be a real card up their sleeve on offense this year.
A huge thing that's going on in the league, and it always has, but it's more prevalent now, at least to my eyes, is do something that's the other 31 aren't doing on offense. Like, and I could go through them all, but you mentioned a few. The Bills led the league in 6 offensive linemen by a wide margin.
Okay.
I mean, a really wide margin. Like 2%'s a lot. They're at like 8. So these, and I bring that, and I'm not saying the Steelers are as good as the Bengals, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills. They're the best offense in the league, the Eagles. But every one of them have distinct, unique ways of playing. Another example is, I haven't double-checked this, but I haven't fact-checked it, but I think there's more fullback. I know this, actually. There's more fullbacks on NFL rosters leading into week 1, and Seattle actually has 2 of them, than there were last year. And last year there was like 15. There were like 15 fullbacks employed by the league. This year I think it's like 25.
Okay.
And the reason is none of these linebackers ever played against a fullback in college. They don't know what shoulder to take on. If he's come flying through the B gap, all of a sudden there's 2 gaps. I mean, a new gap was created. Am I taking it on the strong side, the weak side, the left, the right? Like I've never done this before, let alone Dan Kreider running over my face. And I'm a 210-pound linebacker. I'm not LaVon Kirkland anymore.
Right.
These guys are all undersized.
And you're not even asking those guys to be Mike Allstott out there. You're just asking them to create matchup nightmares. And that's the cyclical nature of football that I love. Mm-hmm. Like, defenses get lighter, offenses get heavier.
Yeah.
Defenses get heavier, offenses get lighter. It's
I mean, a perfect example, we know all the success Shanahan's had with the Niners offense. Well, they've been 2 back forever with Juszczyk. They made Juszczyk the highest paid fullback ever, and he's not Dan Kreider or Tim Lester. He can catch the ball. He can do a lot of things. But with Kittle's ability to block and a second back and, McCaffrey's catching ability, it's like, man, what do I do against their base personnel? I just don't line up in my 3-4 or 4-3 because he's going to detach them and manipulate me. You know what I mean? That was their calling card. It was a fullback, but a different kind.
I'm hoping that's what we're going to see.
I think that's what they're going for.
I think that's what they're going for.
Not easy to pull off as sitting in here,
No doubt. Matt, we got to get to our last break.
One stat did whole segment.
I was going to say, I got a couple more of these hodgepodge of randomness from Matt Williamson. We'll close down with a couple more of these as we roll along. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Final segment of The Drive here on a Wednesday. Matt, I have good news for you.
All right.
The next time you and I do a show together, there will be an NFL football game shortly after.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
Yep.
I am
24 hours from now, and then we'll be tailgating for opening day before that.
Exactly right.
No, I'm
exactly
psyched.
Right. Looking forward to it. As we just put a bow on things for today, kind of sticking with the hodgepodge of randomness, but this isn't random here, Matt. This kind of piggybacks a little bit off of what we just talked about. Arthur Smith offense, tight end usage. How about now wide receiver usage?
Okay.
With Arthur Smith as the head coach or an offensive coordinator, the most targets a wide receiver has ever gotten in a single season, Drake London in 2022 with 117.
It's a very low number, first off, folks.
That's a low number.
Right. I mean, there's guys that have 100 catches every year. You're getting way more than 117 targets. Like, could you search targets last year? Like, where was 117 of ranked amongst all targeted players last year? I bet it's like 30th. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of guys that get into the 150s. CeeDee Lamb's going to get
117 would have been 21st.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's his high water mark.
That's his high water mark.
For a wide receiver.
Yes.
That was a clear number 1, Drake London. That was their last year in Atlanta. Now, I think there's a lot to unpack here. Metcalf easily could exceed that. I mean, he's going to demand targets way more than Austin, Wilson.
Basically, every year he's been healthy. So, besides last year, where he missed a couple games, he's been over that number.
I don't doubt it. If you break it down per game, I'm sure he's
like the 4 years before last year,
that.
129 targets, 141 targets, 119.
So, I'm guessing Metcalf exceeds that if he plays all 17, or if you just break it down per game. I bet it's higher than London's per game target numbers were. Just based off of how much Rodgers has worked with him, how much better he is than the other guys. I don't think he's ever going to leave the field. But this also, I mean, I get asked 100 times a day, and you probably get asked 85 times a day, what are they doing for a number 2 receiver?
Oh, my gosh.
Like, this has gone back to Ayuk.
Matt,
I know it's frustrating.
Matt,
folks. Don't get me wrong.
I see friends at, like, picnics and graduation parties and things like that, friends that I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
That, like, we have kids now and stuff, and the first thing they ask me is not, like, how the kids doing? How's your parents doing?
Right.
It's, who's going to be the Steelers' number 2 wide receiver?
Are they really not going to get on
How's Roman Wilson look? How's Calvin Austin look?
Yeah. So I think that this stat I don't have, but I bet the second highest target, or what I mean is whoever the wide receiver is, it was probably A.J. Brown for a lot of the years. It definitely was A.J. Brown a lot of years. Whoever wide receiver 2 has been in an Arthur Smith offense, I bet their target numbers are even crazier low. You know what I mean? Like, T. Higgins got a ton of targets as a second guy for, Godwin gets a ton next to Evans, Waddle, Hill, etc. But my point is the wide receiver 2 does not get used very much with Smith. Sure. And a lot of it's because it's tight end centric. They run the ball a lot. They play a little slower. They don't run a bazillion plays. Now that kind of takes away a little bit of the need for a wide receiver 2 here more than other cities, for sure. I mean, there's no question about it, by design. Still, and we saw this, and you mentioned it like an hour ago, what if Metcalf gets hurt?
I mean, that's
my sticking
You're
point.
in a very you would feel better about your weapons at tight end.
Yeah.
But you're in you would find yourself much in the same position that you were when George Pickens missed those couple of games down the stretch. You're too easy to play against.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think there's some more to work with Roman Wilson than the Mike Williams and Van Jeffersons of the world.
No doubt. You can't roll with those dudes.
But I don't think I'm not drastically more confident now all of a sudden if DK Metcalf were to miss a couple games.
Agreed. I think I'm much more confident that Austin's a legit NFL player
Totally.
now than I was 365 days ago.
Totally.
And I do have hope for Wilson, and I think Miller's okay. I mean, they're a lot better than the Allen Robinsons and Van Jeffersons and Mike Williams, who was shot and retired. They're a little better off, but it's not good enough.
They're also undersized compared to those guys, too.
Right. So back to the stat. I don't know exactly how to take it because I do think Metcalf will exceed that, but he won't be CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson numbers. Sure. That's for sure.
No doubt.
They just don't throw the football enough.
Those guys are, in the 140s,
right,
150s.
Like Pickens goes to the Cowboys from the Steelers. Well, the Cowboys will probably throw the ball 150 to 200 times more than the Steelers.
Yes,
and they did last year. Well, of course,
especially
he's going to have way more targets.
They're going to need to score some points without Michael Parsons.
Now in particular, right. So a lot of it's based on how you play. I think some of it's Tomlin related too, where defense is still going to be our bread and butter. When in doubt, 3rd and 8, maybe we'll run a draw if we're winning 14-10 and trust the defense, punt, etc. But it definitely is a Smith trait. He's been a play caller long enough now that,
again, there's a sample size there. It's
there's
not
a big
2
sample
years.
Size. First-year coordinator with the Steelers. Never heard this guy before this.
Right.
He was a head coach that ran an offense and a really good offense coordinator with the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's noteworthy. There's no doubt about that.
I think it kind of comes full circle to like that. Maybe that was part of the conversation was, hey, would you rather have a shiny new toy at tight end or is your wide receiver 2, and the way you want to play this thing, I'd rather have the investment in the tight ends. That's where our matchup calling card is going to be. That's where we're going to give teams nightmares. And I
totally get that.
We've got a true number 1 proven in DK, and we've got enough with everybody else with what we have with the tight ends and what we are obviously, too, we all know, wanting to establish in the run game.
100%.
Yeah.
And all that being said, I would be way more comfortable if they had another receiver.
Yes, I would.
Right. They have a lot of money.
If Jacoby Myers was a Steeler today, I would feel much more comfortable.
I would be a lot more comfortable, yes.
Yeah. This season goes well for the Pittsburgh Steelers if.
Like, what would you deem a success? Is that what we're going to say?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we should preface that as well, too. My kind of success.
How did you phrase it?
This season goes well if. I would say going
Oh,
well.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
like
I would see
if
going.
Zach Frazier's the best center in the league.
Right,
Okay, yeah, I see what you're
exactly
saying.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And I think that would kind of the parameters of that could be another double-digit win season and back in the playoffs.
To me, the season would be a success if they won a playoff game.
Ooh, this season goes well if.
I mean, that's more like the result. I mean, if we talk about like the season goes well if, I would say things like Broderick Jones earns a fifth-year option. Things like that. Running game, some things come to mind. Running game can't be, I just posted this, they were 30th in success rate, which is how often you have a successful run. We've talked about yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be middle of the road, things like that. Big plays on defense continue, but it doesn't fall apart late in the year, and the sack numbers go up. Beginning of games have to be better. I mean, have to be better.
Yeah.
Now, they've gotten over some of that. I mean, they've had winning records despite being the worst first quarter team in the league last year. I don't know how to look at the quarterback position. I guess I'd say something like Rodgers doesn't look washed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't expect him to be an MVP.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. But I expect him to stand in there and take hits and orchestrate the offense and be smart with the football and be efficient and throw more touchdowns than we're used to seeing around here. I mean, to me, that's what he's brought in to do,
I really like your Broderick Jones answer there.
Mm-hmm.
If the Steelers pick up Broderick Jones' fifth-year option, I think that's a great one.
It's a big one.
That makes a ton of sense. That means he protected Aaron Rodgers. That means the offensive line took a step forward together. That means the run game is probably where we need it to be.
Probably, right.
That's a great one.
The thing about that, too, and you and I have talked about this a little, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think next year's first-round pick is pigeonholed for a quarterback.
Totally.
Now, the draft could tell you that's not a good move. All these guys we're all excited about could stink, or they could all go in the top 3 picks,
right.
and the Steelers pick 20 or whatever. And, hey, I don't know where the Steelers are going to pick. But I expect that pick and maybe a future first and maybe more is dedicated to a quarterback. And deep down, I think that's their plan. That's how they've built this. The problem is if you need a left tackle, that almost has to be a first-round pick.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't just be.
It's kind of in that same quarterback vein of you need to go shopping at the high-end stores to find that guy.
If it was any other position, I'm like, well, take one in the second round or day 2. They got all these picks. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to throw a third and fourth round pick at it and hope one of them sticks. Or what I really don't want to be, and I think it's a good move for the Titans because they just used the first overall pick on a quarterback. I do not want to be the team that gives the equivalent of Dan Moore $22 million on the open market just so I have a guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the worst aisle ever to shop in.
Absolutely.
So that's why the Broderick Jones stuff's so important for these next 17 games, as well as really big picture of the organization.
There's a real trickle-down effect there. There's a real ripple effect there, however you want to put it. And I think that's brilliantly said by you because it does feel like that first-round draft pick is earmarked for a quarterback.
Yeah.
We know how touted this QB class has been by people who live in that that environment and make their living scouting and around
I'm
the
excited about
draft
it. I've done more
process.
homework with it than usually in September.
100%.
Up to. I mean, like, there's a lot of guys that are pretty enticing.
I think a lot of people in the Steelers media realm have been doing that, paying more attention to college football and particularly the quarterbacks than they would, especially this early in the season in the fall. That is very well said because you do not want to need a left tackle as well with your court, and then it becomes a conversation of how do we get both? Do we go free agency shopping? Right. It could potentially change your plans at quarterback. Yeah, that's
and I forget how I phrased
brilliant
it.
One.
I mean, don't give Broderick Jones a 5th-year option just so you don't have to fight that dilemma, even though he's only 75% earned it. You know what I mean? I want it to be like, oh, he's earned a 5th-year option. That's an easy one. Stamp it. Done.
Yes, exactly.
That would go a long way towards the health of the organization and probably had a decent year this year too.
If they're
an offense.
If they're willing to guarantee his money for 2 years after this, I think that means that he had a
say a lot.
very strong year.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great one by you. I think one of my kind of this season goes well if that rushing yards per attempt number
It's big.
goes from the bottom of the barrel to 16th, 14th.
Yeah.
You know,
I would take that all day long. If you
all
told
day
me
long.
14th or 16th, right?
Anywhere in the 12 to 16 range, I think we're cooking. I think we're in good shape. I think that means a lot for the offense, for Aaron Rodgers, for the pass game as well too, and for a defense that would suddenly be on the field a few less plays a game, get to rest on the sideline a little bit more.
It's such a ripple effect.
And I think it would make life obviously much easier on the quarterback.
Yep. And this offense, Arthur Smith's scheme, is reliant on the running game being good first. And then, not all of them in the league now are. They're all built differently. But if the running game's not adequate, it doesn't have to be the best. It makes everything else that comes off it less, potent.
Totally. No, that makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. From the defensive side of the football, Matt,
My expectations are super high, but they don't have to be top 3 in defense for it to be a successful year on that side of the ball either. But I think they can be.
I don't think they have to be, but I think you better be top 5 at least.
I say top 10 for sure.
For sure.
You're spent a lot of money there, and you got a lot of good players.
To me, this season goes well from a defensive perspective if you remain in the top 3 or 4 in turnovers forced, and you climb back into the top 5 in sacks.
They
were 16th, second in turnovers.
Right.
Keep that up. Stay in that area. 16th,
all the other big play stuff is great except for the sacks.
16th in the league in sacks, dead average, right in the middle. Get up into the top 5, and that is going to make a world of difference.
Yeah, as long as the run defense isn't horrific in the process, those two things would go a real long way. Because I'm to the point now. I know it's not much, but they've been the very top of the league at batting down passes now 2 years in a row. Maybe even further back. I didn't even used to look. It's not an easy stat to find. That's not an accident.
No, it's not.
They're at the top of the league.
And they were doing a lot of that in training camp, too, by the way.
And Black is great at it, too. He's the new guy, They're always the top of the league since TJ's been around in forced fumbles. Like, those things will probably hold up. Most teams, it's fluky. Like, boy, they forced 10 fumbles this year. They probably won't next year. This team's really good at it. Or they batted down a lot of passes. They probably won't next year. I'm to the point where those things are going to be a constant. And I tend to think the takeaways shouldn't be deficient. I don't know if they'll be second in the league in takeaways, but that's a hard thing to maintain year to year. But I like their chances as much or more as any other defense out there to take the ball away because of the forced fumbles, because of the pressure they create, batting passes, ball coming out quick, the players they have, I
think they're in line to take the ball away potentially even more this year.
Maybe.
You throw Ramsey into the mix, you throw Slay into the mix.
Yeah.
Those guys each give you 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
And again,
you get getting their hands on the ball in any way, shape, or form.
40 sacks last year. If that gets closer to 50,
which isn't that much. We're not asking for crazy stuff.
Extra sack every other game.
Yeah.
Put you at 48. In that kind of range. 49. You get there, 8 or 9 extra sacks, that's going to be another fumble or 2. TJ's going to punch one of those out when he gets his hands on Joe Burrow in extra time.
Absolutely.
I don't
want to hurt anyone, but maybe a quarterback doesn't finish the game or is less likely to stand in there for the next play.
Totally.
The things that don't show up on the stat sheet.
Maybe they got to bring an extra protector in, and then all
now
of a sudden
it's a 2-man route concept instead of a 3 or 3 instead of 4.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so those were kind of some things that were at the forefront of my mind. I think we were on the same page there for a lot of those. I like you bringing up Broderick Jones. I think that's a sneaky good one.
Yeah,
that's a sneaky good one for how well this season goes from an offensive perspective. If they're picking up Broderick Jones' contract extension ahead of next season.
Another one that might seem small is, and I'm getting to the point here with Boswell and Danny Smith, that I bet they'll be in the top half of the league in special teams. Special teams really varies year to year. That's just a fact. But if you got a top 5 kicker, this special teams coach sure schemes things up for blocking kicks and punts. And the Steelers do spend, I think, as much time or more than any in practice on special teams and roster construction. Not just Killebrew, but 4 or 5 core teamers. I mean, not every team does that. So you should be at least in the top half of the league again across the board special teams.
And that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that nobody talks about until it ends up costing you a game.
They're not going to beat people 30-3, folks. I mean, I think we know that over the years. That all these like fine margins and things are where they've been winning. How does this team always have a winning record? Well, they don't miss field goals. They don't turn the ball over. I mean, it's little things.
And that's
big things.
That to me is the exciting part about the offense. If they can just take a step forward, they don't even have to be elite.
Yeah.
They don't even have to be great. If they can just be good as an offense, if they can just, I know we'll talk about this in hour 2 when I want to dive deep into some Matt stats, but I've read your stats. I've heard you talk about it. We talked about it at training camp. An average of almost nearly 4 points a game they were down at the end of every first quarter.
It's horrendous.
3.9 points over the season. They were down at essentially 4 points at the end of the first quarter. If you stabilize that, you know what I mean? If your offense starts better,
be average.
Be average.
Be on average, be 0.
On average,
sometimes you're winning, sometimes you lose.
Exactly
right.
Exactly right. Like that to me is where you could start to really get excited. If we see that from the offense start to develop throughout the season, the defense is what we think it is.
And
you can really start to get excited
too. The defense left the most points in the league in the first quarter. Can't happen. Right. It can't happen.
And there's
one thing I will say is I was curious how often did the Steelers kick off first? Like, is it one more possession?
One more possession,
maybe,
sure.
But it's not. It wasn't 17 games that
they were kicking off first every single time.
I mean, maybe it was 11 versus 6 or something, but other teams did too. You shouldn't be last. I don't want to hear it no matter what,
And that's what so many of those underlying statistics with the run game, with the offense, with first quarter point differential, point to a team that would have a losing record and be picking in the top 12.
Yeah.
Where the Steelers have found a way, despite that, to continue to go to the playoffs, continue to win double-digit games, just get that back to league average and keep having special teams be the net success that it's been, keep having defense be the net success that it's been, and that's where I think you start to get excited.
And here's one I think will happen. First off, I think they'll have more sacks. Okay, we've talked about that. I expect them, and I'll be disappointed if they don't generate more sacks or higher in the sack pecking order in the league. But it's been a while, so I'll go real quick. When you look at who wins and loses in the NFL, the most predictive stat is turnover.
Turnovers, yep.
Everyone on the planet knows that.
I know where this is going.
The next two are sack differential and big play differential. And the big play differential was quite good.
Very good.
Nobody threw deep against them. They didn't allow a lot of big plays, and they created a lot of big plays. So they're plus in the explosive world. But they're like at the bottom of the league in sack differential.
-9, I think they were last year.
-9, right. So they were average at producing them, and I expect them to have more. But I know
Aaron Rodgers is going to take
fewer sacks.
This is one of the things you've been preaching since June.
Right. I mean, it might come out too quick. Maybe. That might be the complaint, but it's not going to be Rodgers is sitting there patting the ball, taking sacks left and right. That ain't going to happen.
No, it's not.
And Fields does, and Wilson does, and they have their whole careers.
I think it's great way for you to kind of to wrap this up. That's another one of those. This season goes well if they get that sack differential number back in the positive.
Because I do believe
back
they're the
best
red pass rushing team in the league, and some of the other metrics show that hurries and hits and all those type of things. If you're the best pass rushing team in the league, you should not have a negative sack differential.
No, you should absolutely not. Absolutely
no
not. Let's get that back in the black and have that be a positive for this team. Certainly. The season goes well if I've got some, I don't know if calling them season predictions is the right way to put it, but a couple things here that I want to get your thoughts on, and then one over and under, okay?
Bring it on.
Let's start here because I think I know the answer, and you just kind of touched on it when we were talking about the offensive line. But one of my predictions for 2025 for the Steelers is that by the end of this year, we're all calling Zach Frazier and Troy Fautanu stars.
True. If it's a true-false test, I'm definitely putting
or a yes-no, a true or false. Yeah.
I really think so. And durability is really the only thing that would scare me. But that's true for everybody. I mean, that's not fair. I mean, we just haven't seen a year of Troy already.
Sure.
It would break my heart if his first 2 years got derailed by injuries. It's such a horrible way, and few people return from that. So knock on wood. But I mean, I think those two will be I would even say, I mean, and Stars qualifies, two of the best players at their respective positions.
That's a good way to put it.
Right tackle and center. Yeah.
Like perennial Pro Bowlers and couple All Pros mixed in there.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're not shocked that he got a Pro Bowl vote. Like,
right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Number 2. So that's a positive one. All right, let's go.
And that's a nice position to be in. I mean,
Absolutely.
If you have DeCastro and Pouncey for 10 years that are two of the best at their respective position on the O-line.
And imagine if DeCastro would have been a tackle.
That's what I mean, right.
Like,
you're in a real good spot.
It's great to have an elite guard. It's even better to have an elite tackle.
Yeah.
I think that is something that when we're talking about the nest, when we're talking about the next era, all these things at the end of this season, I think that's going to be the building blocks that we're very excited and encouraged by.
It kind of reminds me about, it was a little while back, but the Jets, coincidentally, used a first-round pick on DeBrickashaw Ferguson. He's like the 7th or 8th pick, and he was a really good left tackle prospect.
Yeah.
And then later in the first round, they had 2 firsts. They take Nick Mangold.
Mangold.
Both of them are just fixtures at left tackle and center for 12 years. It's like, oh, babe.
And this isn't saying much, but that was also the best era of Jets football since Joe Namath.
Joe time they were really competitive.
Back-to-back AFC championship games.
Rex Ryan, yeah.
That's the best football they've played since Broadway Joe. And I think you're right. I think you can draw a direct correlation there to how they nailed both of those guys in that draft. Second one, let's go to a not as encouraging one here. I think the lack of wide receiver depth is going to bite again at some point.
True.
I'm worried about it.
True.
And I think even
if they don't, but I still think they could add something today. You know what I mean? Or
week 3 or week 4.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, not like Gabe Davis that went to the Bills. Like, that's not a huge needle mover. Or Amari Cooper, who retired again today.
Yeah, how crazy was that?
You know, right. That's
just signed with Buffalo like last week.
Raiders, yeah.
Raiders, pardon me. Sorry, yeah.
He's like, and he's hung out there forever, which is probably why he hung out there forever. People thought maybe it's the injury. He's probably like, I don't know if I'm a player or not. Okay, I'm in. This isn't for me.
That strikes me as the classic, like, if you're thinking about retirement,
right.
You probably already are.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, if they keep this group of receivers, there will be a stretch this year. I think it bites them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Subject to change. Everything is new information, arises, or if they go out and make a trade or something like that. But I think right now, at some point we're going to be talking about how that's costing them.
I think there's a chance on Monday we're talking about it. We're like, man, Sauce won that battle. And who else? It doesn't mean they would even lose that game. But if you're playing Denver with, Surtain, or Houston with Stingley, and they're better teams than the Jets, you might be like, man, our number one receiver lost his one-on-one more often than usual because he's playing a stud, and no one else could capitalize. Like,
and our run game, is our run game where we need it to be when that situation happens, arises? Yeah.
Can you beat good teams if DK is not winning a lot?
Or, God forbid, he misses a couple games with injury like we saw with George Pickens last year. More positive one here again. Back to the good. I think the Steelers are going to be a top 3 defense in sacks and turnovers forced. 2nd in turnovers forced last year, 16th in sacks, but 8 more sacks would have put them like 4th in the NFL.
Right.
Top 3 in turnovers forced and in sacks.
If I had to pick one of the two, I'd take sacks, just because turnovers are a little more.
It can be unpredictable.
A little more unpredictable. Tip balls, overthrows. What quarterbacks did you play?
Football is not a perfect circle. It bounces funny.
Too. The ball. Maybe you force a fumble and the other team falls on it 9 out of 10 times. Like that could happen. If you're right, and I'm not saying you're wrong, top 3 is lofty.
It's a lot.
If you're right,
maybe I should have made it top 5.
But if you're right, even if it is top 5. They could win a lot of games. I mean, that's a great place to start.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's not crazy to ask.
No, it is not. And that's another one of those when you look at so many of the Steelers' underlying offensive statistics and how they've been able to win games despite that, pointing to that turnover ratio, as you mentioned, the biggest indicator of wins and losses, just keeping that is a very nice baseline to start working with.
I don't have it in front of me. Maybe you do have Matt's stats, but it's in that first group.
You talking about their record when they don't throw an interception?
Yeah, it's nuts.
I will get to that in the next hour.
Okay. Yeah,
like 17-1, I think, in their last 18 games when they don't throw an interception. And guess what Aaron Rodgers doesn't do?
I was going to say, the next line there is, and Aaron Rodgers is the least interception-prone guy like in history.
We're on the same page. We're gonna get there real soon. In fact, when we return on the other side, but before we go to break, So this one isn't necessarily a true or false or a yes or no. This is maybe more of an over or under, okay? Mason Rudolph, over under 1.5 starts.
Over.
Or I should say 1.5 in-game legitimate appearances.
Yeah, not just comes in and kneels there for some
Or
goofy
it's not
reason,
the final week of the season and the Steelers have already locked up a playoff spot, and so they decide to rest Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, or Rodgers hits his hand on the helmet, comes out for one play, and then he's fine. That doesn't count. Like,
correct.
plays meaningful snaps.
Like
in
at least a
meaningful
quarter
game.
or a half, yeah.
Over. And I don't think Rodgers gets benched. I just think most teams, I would bet the backup sees 2 games or more.
Correct. It's the nature of the beast.
Nature of the beast. And the age is a factor.
The age is absolutely a factor.
Yeah.
And I think if there was a scenario where Aaron Rodgers was questionable, they would be confident saying, "Hey, Aaron, take an extra week. We can win this game with Mason. We can keep the boat afloat with Mason."
That's a great point. I mean, if you're 7-3, the season's going pretty well, but you got a lot ahead of you. Let's give you 2 weeks here,
Yes.
And we'll roll the dice with Rudolph. Yeah, I could see that. I actually bet that pops up.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then the last one I had on here that I had to strike from the list because I put this together a few weeks ago was that Kenny Pickett will start a game for the Browns against the Steelers, but unfortunately that ship has sailed.
No, but I bet 3 or 4 Browns start games this year.
I bet you the 2 games against Cleveland, they're starting different quarterbacks in both of those games.
Yeah. And I don't think I bet Flacco's already benched by the time the Steelers play him in week 6.
Because they could be 0-5.
I think they'll be 0-5. I mean, I can't talk enough about the Browns' first 6 games.
Their
Game
schedule
6
is
being
brutal.
Steelers, right.
Brutal.
And we saw it last year. I hate the word like give up or cash it in, but they did last year, and their season could be shot a month in.
Yeah, no doubt.
Then you're playing rookies,
But it really does feel like there's some real meat on the bone as it relates to individual matchups.
Oh, I agree.
In this game.
I 100% agree. I mean, say what you want about the Jets, but they have some stars. They have some building blocks, some young guys. They just paid Wilson. They just played Sauce. Quinton Williams, a big-time player. They got some dudes. I mean, the tackles are first-round picks. That's kind of fun. And so I think you could say that with probably almost any Jets game, that there's some pretty cool matchups for a lot of their games,
Absolutely. Some big names on both of these rosters, on both sides of the ball. You mentioned Metcalf and Sauce in our opening segment there. Yeah. Is that kind of the highlighter?
That might be the headliner.
The headliner, right, on a – it's a good – this is like Woodstock. Like there's some big acts on there, but it's a
real big – and they both have the size too. I mean, like it's not like it's Denzel Ward,
Right. Is this the Jimi Hendrix of the Woodstock lineup?
Yeah, maybe that's the last one that comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could we'll talk about the other side of the ball too. But if it was a year ago and the Steelers only had Porter, well, you could argue is Porter versus Wilson or Metcalf versus Sauce the better battle. You know what I mean? Where this one, I don't know exactly how the Steelers will handle Wilson, but they have more options. The Jets with Sauce. So I don't know if I've said this throughout the week. I'm on so many outlets, to be honest with you. But the Lions, who this staff comes over from.
Yes.
And the head coach was defense coordinator in Detroit last year, for those that don't follow the Jets. And they were the heaviest man coverage defense in the league.
Okay. Where
the Jets, during Sauce's career, more zone heavy, a lot of off coverage from him. You won't find a lot of reps of Sauce, Mel Blunton on the playing press man, beating guys up at the line of scrimmage, but he's still really good at it. He's long, he can do everything. So they give him a huge contract, this staff, and the Jets also. Reed was a really good corner. He went to the Lions, coincidentally. They would left-right it through Sauce's career, so he didn't even follow. He was the right corner, left corner, whatever,
Sure.
And with a lot of off coverage, break on the ball, attack the ball in the air, really, really good at it. But I think they're planning on using him, taking it up a level, and the contract implies that. The Lions' background implies that I think it's like we're looking at you to deal with the DK Metcalfs of the world, as many snaps as possible.
To do Revis-type things?
I think.
I mean, I'm not saying
I don't
he's
think
gonna
he'll
be that
left-right
good,
it for sure, but right, you're right. I mean, I think he's a top 3 or 4 corner.
Agreed.
I mean, he's a really, really good player and one of their best assets. So, I mean, I'm not even certain DK wins that battle. You know what I mean? Like I said in the first segment, like that's going to be huge. I'm not sure what Vegas odds are on that boxing match right now, you know?
You mentioned how you're on a bunch of different outlets, and I'm not on quite as many as you, but I do some different things as well. I was talking with our buddy Chad Tyson on DVE earlier, and he asked me, how concerned are you about the wide receiver 2 conversation that's been lingering? And I said more this week than I am in some other weeks. I said, because what happens if Sauce clearly wins that matchup against DK?
That's a great point. And again, it's like, okay, well, I don't need Roman Wilson to have, or Austin for that matter, to combine for 14 for 140, but I need you to make some plays. I mean, there's going to be third downs. I got to go your way or
Keep
whatever.
Keep that secondary honest.
Absolutely. Or, hey, I would think that you're going to get a lot of man coverage as well. Are you big and physical enough to deal with it? And I mentioned their second corner that they lost Reed to the Lions, big money free agent guy. And they went out and they signed Brandon Stevens from the Ravens. So someone that the Steelers know well. He's a big physical guy. I don't think he's a particularly good player, but he's played a lot of man. He's got a lot of ability. And his issue is he doesn't play the ball or find the ball well in the air. You know, so he gets beat a lot, but the first 9/10 of the route are pretty good. And at the end, it's like, yeah, I bet he's super frustrating for coaches. And sometimes guys never get that. You know, finding the ball in the air is tough, and getting your head around and having eyes, especially if you're playing man. But he is going to be bigger and more physical than Wilson and Austin.
And it's
a little frightening.
That can quite often be the advantage that you need in those type of matchups. That I think is certainly a headliner, certainly a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
I also, man, though, I know that quickly, if we're going to stick with the Steelers offense, I'm sure Quinnen Williams
he's a stud
against the interior of that Steelers offensive line is a big. Whoever wins that is going to be a big indicator to how things play out on Sunday.
Again, this was not the same staff as last year, so you don't know exactly usage, what their plans are. They don't tell us, you know. But he's mostly a 3 technique. I mean, he's going to line up a lot on an outside shoulder of a guard. But I would bet that they move him from the outside shoulder of the left guard to the right outside shoulder of the right guard and everywhere in between. You know, so I think he's right there with Cam Hayward as one of the best 5 defensive tackles in the league. And it can be easy to forget about him in those conversations because the team doesn't win any games. But the Jets defense has been pretty darn good for a while, and he's the straw that stirs the drink.
He's one of those guys to me that, you know, he's not on national TV very often.
Right.
I know he plays in a big market, but he doesn't play for the Giants. He doesn't play for the Giants.
Right.
Because even the Giants defensive line and those guys get a lot more credit than he does, despite being a team that has not been very good the last few years as well, too. It's a very early test for those 3 guys on the interior.
Oh, yeah.
If you can perform against this guy, I like what you're going to do for the next 16 games.
Yeah.
That's not to say that if Quinnen Williams gets the best of that Steelers interior on Sunday, that means that they're going to be a disaster for 16 games either. But this is
that's a guy you double and
This is not Ohio State opening with Akron week 1. Like this is Ohio State and Texas. I mean, this is a big test right out of the chute.
And the other D tackles aren't exactly household names, but they did just trade for Phillips from the Vikes, who's a veteran power interior player that's tough to move. You know, he'll complement Williams pretty well. And their edge guys are pretty good pass rushers too. Their defensive front is not bad, including their second level dudes who run real well too. Williams' brother, you know, they make a lot of plays too. So this defense isn't bad.
No, they're not. And I mean, in fact, if you're listing the things that they did well last year, it's not a huge list, but you would probably start with that defense.
Yeah.
And, you know, you bring in Aaron Glenn. It is obviously game 1, so you hope that you're getting them at the right time where there's still some kinks and some rust to work out, but bringing in a defensive mind as well, too. You know, I think by the end of the year, they could certainly be a top 10 defense.
I don't think that's crazy.
In the National Football League.
I don't know if he's calling plays or not. I bet he's not as a new head coach, but his influence, he was a very good play caller, varied things. I mean, you don't know exactly what you're getting from his Lions days,
And I would expect that to continue.
And the Steelers have a lot of new bodies on offense.
Certainly,
you know what I mean? All right.
Certainly,
They haven't played a lot
they've
of
got some
snaps
rust
together.
and
Right.
some kinks to work out as well
Absolutely.
too. Particularly, I think how they're going to use those 3 tight ends, the different skill sets, the different body types.
Mm-hmm.
What's it look like in 12 personnel? What's it look like in 13 personnel? Heck, what's it even look like in 11 personnel when there's only going to be 1 tight end out there? And how the Jets go about deploying their defense, base versus nickel versus what's it look like if it's Muth and Jonnu? What's it look like if it's Washington and Muth and et cetera? That to me is a real kind of chess matchup to watch as well too.
1,000%. And that one I'm kind of looking at with kind of a precursor of maybe these next 16 games after that. What does the league do against 13? Now, the Jets could be an outlier, and they might do something crazy like play dime or whatever, because of the way that they look at it. Who knows? But I am real curious of specifically those snaps when all 3 tight ends are on the field. It wouldn't shock me if you get base. Wouldn't shock me if you get nickel. Like, the league has changed a little bit in that it used to be when you come out in 12, 1 back, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, you would almost always get base. 21 or 12 almost was always base. But the league as a whole, this is a very generic statement, it depends who you have, is now countering 12 much, much more with nickel. Because a lot of these tight ends aren't very good. They're more Jonnu than they are Darnell. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm going to have lighter linebackers. I'm going to put an extra safety on the field. Maybe I'll guard the Jonnus of the world or Kelce's of the world with a Ramsey type, or a big safety or something like that, as opposed to being real heavy. But 13's a different world. I don't think there's a blueprint for
Absolutely
we're going to get a heavy dosage of 13. I always bring up the Ravens. The Ravens don't run much 13, but the Ravens throw crazy stuff at you. I mean, they're the number 1 12 personnel team in the league. But what's 12 with Ricard or 22 with Ricard? And oh, by the way, your back's 250 pounds going to the Hall of Fame too, and your quarterback is the best runner in the league too. Do we play nickel against this?
Good luck.
So, yeah, right.
Yeah,
So I'm just going to pay attention to how the league responds to 13. Because the players are so different, too, to your point. All 3 of these tight ends are really different on purpose.
That's what makes it. And again, I know we talked about this earlier in the week. My kind of hope for that being the Steelers' matchup nightmare, their matchup card.
It could be their ace up the sleeve.
You just alluded to what that is for Baltimore. We all know for Cincinnati, it's Burrow and Chase and T and how they can just sling that thing all over the field. I hope the Steelers' kind of matchup nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators is how they're going to use those tight ends, how they're going to deploy them, and what are we going to look like when it's such and such on the field, so and so on the field.
So I'm sure most of our listeners are going to watch Bills Ravens on Sunday night.
Better.
You're out of your mind if you don't.
I'm racing home from the flight back from MetLife to catch the start of it.
So Allen and Lamar are the headliners, of course. They may go down as all-time greats. I think they blow me away. But you'll see, if you pay attention to this game, Buffalo's going to come out with a 6th offensive lineman a lot. The Ravens are going to come out with a lot, not many wide receivers. Just put it that way. It's going to be Lamar, Henry, Ricard, Kolar, Likely, Andrews. You might just have Zay Flowers out there as the only receiver. No one uses 1 receiver less than the Ravens. And these were 2 of the best offenses in the league last year, if not the best too, And there's different ways to do it.
A lot of ways to skin that cat.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the intriguing from a defensive coordinator perspective. There's no easy way. There's no perfect way to go about defending all this. If there was, everybody would run that scheme. Everybody would do it that way.
And the other thing that's great about it too is, I say this every year, but especially once we get into the week 1's a little bit different. But when you only have 7 days to prepare, it really isn't 7 days for one thing. It's really only a couple practices. And it's just not as long of a prep week as you usually it's a lot of fans think, right. For, man, we're going to need a lot of practice time against 13 personnel all week long trying to figure this stuff out, even if you only get it 12% of the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's one of the things that there is less time in the week, certainly, than people realize.
Yeah. And there's definitely less time on the grass with helmets on than you think.
Especially once you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
past week 1 and the schedules
Right.
start to change, and Thursday night football and Monday night football and travel and all those different things. Last one from a Steelers offensive perspective to focus on with you, Matt. How about this Steelers run game? The running backs, in particular Jaylen Warren, against Williams and Shearwood and these off-ball linebackers of the Jets.
Yeah, they just are smaller, very active, good in coverage, free-flowing linebackers that make a lot of plays. And the coverage stuff's important. Quinton Williams is a really, really underrated player. It gets overshadowed by his brother. But I just am thinking of all the stretch outside zone stuff that the Steelers is just an Arthur Smith staple. You're not going to beat those guys to the edge very often, and you're going to have to get some big bodies, whether it's Washington, an O-lineman, covering those guys up downfield a little bit because they can make a lot of plays.
Whew.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, and that's just the Steelers' offensive side of the football.
Yeah.
Let's take a break here and,
Cool.
and spin the block to the other side. That work for you?
Absolutely, bro.
I want to continue talking some matchups with you. We'll focus on them from a Steelers defensive perspective. On the drive here, as we are taking a look at some matchups between the Steelers and the Jets, some 5-star matchups that are going to determine the outcome of this one. Of course, Sunday, 1 o'clock at MetLife Stadium. Matt, our last segment there, we focused on it more from a Steelers offensive perspective. Mm-hmm. If we spin that block, if we go to the other side of the football, what's the headliner matchup for you on the Steelers' defensive side of the ball?
I think there's a couple for sure. First of all, just Tomlin versus Fields. Like the familiarity and all that. We'll break them all down individually, but two really promising first-round tackles versus welcome to the NFL, TJ and Highsmith and maybe Herbig is a big one.
Godspeed, guys.
Is a big one. And the other one I think to me is Wilson versus what do they do with Wilson? There's a lot of options I want to dig into. We can even start there if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so I would be shocked, again, new coaching staff, if we see a lot of 3 receiver sets from the Jets. And they used a lot last year, but that was Lazard and Adams.
I was going to say they had a
Wilson,
more talented group last year.
Rodgers was your quarterback. It wasn't Fields. They couldn't be any more different. So they did not use a lot of multiple tight end stuff in New York last year. But it's a whole new staff. They used a second-round pick on a tight end who's promising. Jason Taylor's kid, Woodland Hills Jason Taylor. So I think you're also going to want to help those tackles. I think you're going to get bigger personnel than what the Jets played with last year. Where I'm going with this is I think the Steelers will be in their base defense with 4 defensive backs more than usual as a result, because they want to run the ball. I think you want to be heavier. You want a nose tackle on the field as opposed to an extra defensive back. Now, when they made the Ramsey trade, I was kind of uncertain who their 4 defensive backs going to be. And it sure seems like Thornhill won't be one of them. Ramsey will be the free. Elliott will be the strong. Porter and Slay on the outside. Cool. I think that's your best 4 guys. I'm a Thornhill fan, but those are your best 4 football players.
Certainly.
And Ramsey can do it. It's one of the beauties of him. However, I also thought back then when the deal happened, maybe you might tell Slay, we love you, but you're up in age, and we want you for 20 games. In those instances, what if we took a little off your plate? You know what I mean? Put Ramsey on the outside, Thornhill at free. So I thought those are the 2 options, of what group of 4 defensive backs could you put out there? And to me, those are the only 2 options that makes any sense. And I 100% believe them that Ramsey's never leaving the field. So he's either going to be the outside corner or he's going to be the free in 4 DB sets. Now, Tomlin, like I did a night show with Mike Pursuta last night, and he reminded me, he's like, Tomlin said, if someone's following around to number 1, it's Jalen. I love you, Darius.
Very clear.
I love you, Joey, but this is the alpha. This is Mel Blount. This is Woodson. This is our dude. And you definitely got that impression at camp. He carries a lot of weight. And there's only one guy to follow. So would it be Jalen?
How's that look if they're in base?
If they're going to be in base a lot,
majority of this game, sure.
Yeah. Do you want your best guy in deep middle, or is it the second scenario that I laid out there? Or do you just trust the 3 of them and say, we're not going to follow him with 1. We like all of these guys. If it was a year ago, I think Porter would follow him. It's not like this is crazy talk. Slay's done it a ton in his career. I know he's not as good a player now as he was on his best day, but he's done it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you just don't tip your hand, and wherever he lines up, we go that way, and Ramsey leans his direction over the top. You know what I mean? So I think that's really interesting. There's a lot of options.
Is that how you would go about it? Because I think you're right. I think that there is a chance that when the regular season's over and we have those 17 data points, this might be the game where we see the highest percentage of base from the Steelers.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Baltimore
could be,
but
right.
outside of the division, this feels like Buffalo.
They may lead the league in rushing attempts this year. New York.
They certainly could.
I bet they want to.
They certainly could.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see a lot of base against Buffalo. I think we'll see a lot of base against Detroit. But, But this could be the most that we see.
Yes.
So what's that look like with how you would want to deploy Jalen Ramsey specifically?
I think how I would do it, first of all, I meant to say this just a second ago. If whatever you're doing is not working through 2 quarters, we'll do something else. You know,
and they were,
right.
As we talked about yesterday, when we went through Matt's stats.
Yeah,
that's one thing they did very well last year.
Yeah.
Best third quarter point differential in the league.
Yeah, right.
That means whatever
the adjustments during the game are good.
Whatever they were doing for those 15, 20 minutes during halftime was working.
Yeah. That's a great point. You know, and even in game, boy, Wilson's tearing us up. You can't let him tear you up. I don't care what happens, but yes, he'll get some catches. But, I don't want to start DK Metcalf or Garrett Wilson in fantasy this week. I think both of them, are in for long days, to be very honest with you. How I would handle it for this game, because most games I think I would have Thornhill as the guy on the sidelines with 4, just because I don't think he's as good at football as Slay. But in this game, I would sit Slay. And here's the reason, because I do think it's the first game that Ramsey's ever put a Steeler helmet on for real, you know. And I think it sends a message to everyone that you're going to follow Wilson, Jalen. And also, Thornhill's better against the run, as almost every safety is, than Slay is. You know, so they're going to run the ball a ton. If one of them has to get Fields down or Breece Hall down 20 yards downfield, I trust the safety to do it more than the corner.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. That makes a ton of sense. And that is... From aside from the obvious storylines of Aaron Rodgers against his old team, Justin Fields against his old team, new coach for the Jets, there is a ton in this game. But that, I think, is the thing I'm most intrigued to see, is how they're going to deploy that secondary all year, but particularly against a Jets team that so clearly wants to run the ball,
right,
and so clearly has one receiver that can hurt you.
Yes, and I also think Ramsey's certainly better against the run than Slay as an outside corner. People don't think about corners in against the run, but it's a huge theme now. I mean, that's why the Mike Hiltons of the world are going away, because they just run Derrick Henry at him over and over. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. All right, talk to me about these Steelers edge rushers against those young bookend tackles for the Jets.
I think everyone knows what the edge rushers are all about. I mean, and I don't think Watt's going to move around much. Maybe he does a little, but it's 2 snaps a game. I mean, I think he's going to get Membo, and Fashanu's going to get Highsmith. Hopefully you mix in a lot of Herbig on throwing downs and maybe a little bit of Sawyer on, heavy situations, But I really like both these tackles. That's where I want to stress it, because I think everyone knows who the Steeler guys are at this point. Membo was my favorite offensive lineman in this draft. When the Browns, and I always take an extra minute to throw an arrow at the Browns, but when they made
fire you once upon a time.
When they made the Travis Hunter trade, I thought, that's smart. They can go build an offensive. They had all these picks, and I killed them after the draft because they drafted 0 offensive linemen. But I would have drafted Membo, not Mason Graham. That would have been my start. When the Browns were good is when their line was good,
Nick Chubb running the ball. And
right.
Line.
No, those guards, and they were a good physical group up front. So Membo I adore, but he's also a little bit more of a boxier, get off the ball, blow your face off guy, than light on his feet, dancing bear, protection dude,
Sure.
Fashanu's more that dude, but he's a little bit short-armed, which is at this time, this time it would be 2 years ago. This time, 2 years ago, if you would look at draft lists, people talked about him like he could compete for being the first overall pick. Like,
Yes.
this is a special offensive tackle at Penn State. And I'm sure a lot of Penn State fans remember him.
People were shocked when he came back for his senior year at Penn State. Shocked.
Right,
They were
right.
like, he's going to be a top 5 pick. What are you doing?
He's a no-brainer. And his tape's awesome. But he had a real rough day. I think it was against Sawyer, actually. He had a really bad day against Ohio State. And he goes to the combine, and his arms are a little short. I mean, I think he's going to be a really good left tackle. But that's basically his scouting report, too. He's a little bit more of a protection guy. Membo's a little bit more of a masher. I think that's a great place to start to rebuild your team. But the Steelers guys are better. You know what I mean?
Yes, they're more proven. They've got a lot of all pros and Pro Bowls between them.
Yeah.
But those are high pedigree guys that were drafted even higher than Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Right.
That this is a real test for them out of the gate. And we talked about those sack numbers and how we want to see that rise for the Steelers this season. I think this is a good place to start.
Yeah,
against a guy like Fields that'll hold it a little bit too long, and against some wet behind the ears tackles.
I mean, if this was a Jets keys, ball's got to come out, Justin. And if it doesn't, I know he's elusive and he's not easy to get on the ground, but they'll get to him. And Vera Tucker not being there doesn't help either.
It hurts.
It hurts bad. That's
hurts
a big blow to what they want to do.
Let's talk about Justin Fields now. You said at the start of this segment, which I thought was funny, but it was very Moats-like. It reminded me of something he would have done. Justin Fields versus Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin.
Yeah.
Like he loved to throw those kind of matchups in there. Not necessarily guys that are on the field against each other.
1,000%.
But players and coaches and how they go about attacking him and trying to confuse him.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do. They might take the Lamar mush rush, keep him in the pocket. If we don't get sacks, so be it. But we just want him sitting there patting the ball, and maybe they'll take that approach. Now, one thing that Pursuit and I were talking about last night, too, is I don't think Steeler fans know, unless you watched him with the Bears, how good of a runner he really is. Rarely did they feature him that way, or rarely did he even get an opportunity to really open it up, because he can fly and is one of the best running quarterbacks that have ever lived, to be honest with you. And I don't think the Jets are going to hesitate one bit. I mean, they're going to
1,000-yard rush seasons.
Right. So obviously he presents a lot of problems on the ground. But through the air, he has a big arm, but he is very much a see it and throw it guy. Him and Rodgers couldn't be any more different in terms of anticipation, and his super high time to throw is a twofold thing. First of all, he's going to have some of the Lamar snaps where it's 5 seconds because he runs around and he's making plays behind the line of scrimmage. People can't get him on the ground. But more than anything, even if he had bad feet, he'd be a high time to throw guy, because he wait, see it, throw it,
Sure.
And that's a tough way to live. At Ohio State, you can do that when first-round picks are blocking for you and you're throwing to Marvin and JSN or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Or superstar recruit, you can do that because you get the biggest arm in Georgia. You know what I mean? Tough to pull it off here,
It certainly is, against a group and a coaching staff that's familiar with you and what you do and your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And
they know he doesn't like going to his stuff we would never even think of. He really doesn't like rolling to his left. Or, I always think about when they used to play Mayfield twice a year. Mayfield had a terrible habit of anything went bad, he rolled right.
Yes,
and TJ would just sit there and be like, I know he's coming. Sam's causing problems over there.
Had that same issue.
Right. Cam's causing problems over there. I don't have to rush upfield. He's going to come to me. Boom, done. You learn these guys pretty good.
And that one, I think it was the last time Baker Mayfield played against the Steelers at Heinz Field, and Cam Hayward, I mean, he had one of those remember me hits. I don't know if you remember that, but he about broke Baker Mayfield in half. I almost felt bad for Baker Mayfield, how much he got just planted into the turf there at Acrisure Stadium. And yeah, that's a good way to kind of lay it out there, and some of those little things, those little nuances that you know about a quarterback that you spent a year with.
And of course, you'll ask Arthur Smith and the quarterback coach and all this, what'd you guys work on? I mean, not that Tomlin wouldn't know, but
Yeah, 100%. Last one here, Matt, is obviously the run defense is critical for the Steelers. Those defensive linemen, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Y.A. Black, guys like Logan Lee and Aquale and Loudermilk, they're going to feature into this equation as well, too. against a talented, obviously Justin Fields, as we just talked, but a talented tandem of running backs.
Yeah, I'm a big Breece Hall fan, and it sounds like his percentage of touches and role is going to decrease a little bit just because they're a big committee group. They seem to love Allen. I don't, but I see what they like about him. He's remarkably young. I mean, he came in the league like younger than Juju did, and he's a linebacker turned running back at Wisconsin, and he's big and he's fast. And that's a good combination, but I don't think he's got great vision, and I don't think he's a great all-around back. But they like him. He's big and fast. So they're all three of those guys, including Fields, are going to carry the ball a lot, by design. And this time of year, fatigue always worries you. I mean, for all 32 teams.
Totally.
Tackling always worries you. Run fits, things like that. Just physical nature of playing defense that you didn't do at Latrobe or very little in the preseason. And it's a tiny sample size. But that little that the ones played in Carolina, they didn't tackle very well. Yeah, they didn't.
They did not.
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually.
And these guys will take it to the house. These aren't Najee that if you miss a tackle, he ends up with 8 yards. It could be 60.
It could be see you later.
Yeah.
100%. That is, I think, the biggest game within the game is, the Steelers limiting the Jets' rushing attack and making them one-dimensional, and then letting all those Justin Fields things that we talked about bubble up to the surface.
Last thing on that, again, it's a Lions offensive staff, too, that they stole from Detroit. Now, I don't know what you can take out of that film, though, because Goff is not a runner. You know what I mean? Like, but they're a very diverse run scheme. They don't just run 2 or 3 run plays over and over. They throw a lot at you, and that was without a running quarterback. So what kind of run plays are you going to see? I don't know.
Some very interesting wrinkles, I think, to say the least. Congratulations. You made it, folks. Last segment of the week. That means last segment for us and our Steelers Nation radio programming before the ball will be kicked off in the air. Yeah, we've got the pregame show and all those things on DVE that Matt is a part of. Mike Pursuta, Jerry Dulac, Bob Labriola, the whole cast.
9 a.m. with Tom.
Characters, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm not just saying this because you're both my buddies and I like you both and everything, but I enjoy, right around the time that Dan Quinlan and I get to the booth and get set up. We get there about 4.5, 5 hours early. But by the time we get set up, is about 4 hours-ish before the game, which is right when you and Tom are going on. And so I'll go to the cafeteria there. I'll get myself a plate of food.
Okay.
The hay is in the barn at that point, kind of, you know what I mean? And I can put my feet up and eat a meal and listen to you and Tom do the pregame show. It's been fun. You guys have some good chemistry, and we'll be looking forward to that with you guys getting regular season proceedings underway for us starting 9 a.m. with the pregame show on your flagship of the Black and Gold 102.5 DVE. And then, of course, Pursuta, Dulac, Labs at 11 o'clock for the 2-hour pregame show leading up to that 1 o'clock kickoff.
And I joined those guys, too, about an hour before kickoff.
Matt Williamson is busy on game days, folks, I tell you. As there will be plenty of pregame and, of course, a fun, intriguing start to the season for the Steelers in New Jersey. That's one of the other Arthur Moats things you better not ever better not ever say New York about the Giants and the Jets. It's in New Jersey, all right? All their stuff's in New Jersey.
I understand, but that's the title of the franchise.
There's only one team that plays in New York. That's the Buffalo Bills.
I got you. Okay. I guess he's a former Bill. So yeah.
Sunday at MetLife in New Jersey, the New York Jets hosting the Steelers. Pittsburgh, a 2.5-point favorite, Matt. And this by far, too, the lowest over-under of the week in the NFL, just 37.5 points. Let's start there. Over-under 37.5 points.
It's funny you do this because I always screw it up. Dales makes fun of me all the time. My Pitt Johnstown math. I have a what's the number again?
37.5.
I'm under.
Okay.
I'm not going to divulge my score, but I had to add it up in my head there. I'm under.
Ooh, that's a good call. I can do the same thing. I'm also under.
Okay. Take it away. What's your prediction?
My prediction is 16-13 Steelers.
Ooh, okay. I'm similar. But if we're under, I figured you would be. Okay.
1 touchdown and 3 Chris Boswell field goals. And for New York, 1 touchdown and 2 Nick Folk field goals.
Okay.
You're
pretty specific on that. Okay. I like it.
I just think I think that the spread is about right on this one. I see the Steelers winning by 3 or 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll be some squirmy moments. There'll be some squeaky moments for Steelers fans. They'll have the butt clenched from time to time.
Yeah.
But I do think the Steelers, just talent-wise, continuity-wise, and I know they've got a lot of new pieces on that offense and defense, but I think that they have more of a mantra of how they're going to play and how they're going to win. I like Pittsburgh 16-13. It'll be a rock fight. It won't be pretty, but we'll be flying back for the home opener with the first win in the books.
For a lot of the similar reasons, and this happens a lot in the last segment of the week, is if you talk about a game all week, you kind of get the idea what your co-host is thinking too. I have the Steelers winning 17-16. One thing we haven't noticed is, or one thing we haven't brought up is Tomlin on opening day is very, very good. I don't think that's an accident. I think he knows how to prepare his team. Now, he didn't play his starters as much as usual, but I also think he's got a really good pulse for where his franchise is no matter what. And the Jets have a first-time head coach, which I have a hard time betting on. Especially first game ever. When do I call timeouts? Just all the logistics of it all can get screwy. Younger quarterback. But I think there will be Steeler fans on Monday that aren't thrilled with the offensive performance.
I would almost guarantee
I don't think it's going to be a great running game. I think Metcalf's in for a long day. And I could see a lot of 3-and-outs and a lot of punts and rust, call it whatever you want, or concern. But I think the Steeler D is set up real well. And I'm assuming Cam Hayward plays. I think the pass rush will be dominant. I can't see Wilson beating them. And I think you sell out to stop the run a lot with a deep front seven that you just keep rotating them through. And that gets a win. It might not be pretty. I don't think it's going to be pretty.
I would bank on it not being. But I think the Steelers defense, much like we saw in the opener against Atlanta last year.
Yeah.
You had a new head coach, a new quarterback with that team, and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Like, the Steelers defense was the difference, and all you needed was 18 points.
Mm-hmm.
6 Chris Boswell field goals.
I trust the Steelers special teams more too.
Even with the addition of Nick Folk, who's been good over the last 2 years, I still trust the Steelers special teams more. All right, I'm going to let a Hail Mary get in here at the last second from Jeff on Twitter. Okay? He says Steelers 23, Jets 17, but he wants some quick over and unders from us on these. DK Metcalf over under 7.5 receptions.
Under.
I agree. Aaron Rodgers over under 170 yards passing.
Over.
Slightly over.
Yeah, I think he gets to 200-ish.
TJ Watt over under 2.5 sacks.
Under. That's a huge
number. Big number. Yeah.
Jets don't plan on throwing. They will, but they don't plan on throwing a lot.
I think that's an easy under. Jaylen Warren over under 85 yards rushing.
Under. I can see 85 all-purpose yards. I do think he's going to get the bulk of the carries.
I do too.
I don't think that's a crazy number.
I think that's a good number. I think he better at least be close to that.
Yeah. I don't think Johnson's going to play a ton.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And I think Gainwell will be situationally.
I don't think he get many carries. He might be out there, but he won't get many carries.
If the Steelers are playing with a lead most of the game, I don't think we'll see a ton of Gainwell.
No, I tend to agree. I think Warren gets.
If they're chasing it, we'll definitely see Gainwell.
Warren might get his highest percentage of snaps of the year here. So I'm kind of talking myself into the over because I think quarterback's not going to run for anything. I think they run for about 100 yards. It's a good 85 is a good number. I think that's right and about the range. Yeah.
Matt, fun stuff this week, man, and I'm excited to really get into the flow of it here. That we'll be breaking down games and previewing games now every single week. Going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Thanks to Matt for co-hosting. Thanks to our guy TV in here for putting all the YouTube stuff together for us. We have a hype rally show as well too, Matt. I wanted to make sure to plug this. I got the name of it written down here. But if you're going to be in the area, Saturday night in Jersey City, what's the name of it here? Oh, for crying out loud. Wicked Wolf Tavern. 6:30 to 8:30.
You're going to be there, right?
Rob King, Missy Matthews, myself will be doing the show for 2 hours.
Yeah, nice.
Hanging out. We also, at some point, are going to be joined by a Steelers legend, Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer, who played for both the Steelers and the Jets. Big Red Alan Faneca.
I should have got that. I'm sitting here thinking Santonio Holmes, James Ferrier, but I'm like, they didn't go to the Hall of Fame. They had great careers, but okay, that's a good one.
So an opportunity to come out for a little Road Warriors party and listen to some more of your favorite Steelers audio network personalities as well, too. But that will do it for us this week. We'll be back with you, as always, to break it all down on Monday. You know where to find us. It's on your 24/7 home of the Black and Gold, Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network.
You're tuned to The Drive on your 24/7 home of the Black and Gold, Steelers Nation Radio.